If you started this video thinking that 2026 needs to be different, you are not alone. You are probably tired of starting over. Tired of writing goal lists that feel powerful for a few days, only to slowly collapse back into old habits. You promise yourself that this time will be different. And for a moment, it feels like it might be, but then motivation fades. Discipline weakens. Life pulls you back into familiar patterns. And once again, transformation turns into frustration at some point. You may have asked yourself a quiet but painful question. What is wrong with me? Here is the truth. Nothing is wrong with you. But there is something deeply wrong with what you were taught about change. Most people believe that changing their life requires more effort, more discipline, more willpower, more pressure. That if they could just push harder, stay stricter, resist more, everything would finally fall into place. But science tells a very different story. Psychologist Carol Dweck, one of the most influential researchers in human behavior, discovered that what truly separates people who change from those who stay stuck is not effort. It is mindset. Specifically, the way you interpret yourself when things go wrong. Right now, whether you realize it or not, there is an invisible belief shaping your decisions. If you believe that you were never born disciplined, that you always quit halfway, that you are just not that kind of person, then you are operating from what psychologists call a fixed mindset. This mindset whispers that your abilities are permanent, that failure is humiliating, that effort is proof of inadequacy. And as long as this belief is alive, no new year will ever truly be new. But there is another way to live, that a way of thinking that does not ask you to become perfect, only to become better. The growth mindset says that no limitation is permanent, that effort is not weakness, it is the path, that failure is not an identity, it is information. And if this resonates with you, then this video was made for you, because 2026 will not be your best year. Because you work harder, it will be your best year, because you learn to think differently. And that change does not begin in January. It begins now. Perhaps the biggest obstacle between you and the life you want is not a lack of discipline, talent, or focus. It is the way you interpret your limits. Most people don't realize it, but they live inside sentences they repeat so often that they stop questioning them. I'm not good with numbers. I've never been organized. I always lose motivation. I just can't stay consistent. These phrases sound harmless, honest, even, but they are not descriptions. They are definitions. Each time you repeat one of them, you are not describing a temporary state. You are declaring an identity. And when the mind believes a limitation is part of who you are, it stops searching for exits. It adapts. It settles. It quietly accepts stagnation as fate. This is exactly what Carol Dweck uncovered in her research. By observing people facing challenges, she noticed something profound. Those who grew the most were not the ones who succeeded immediately. They were the ones who could say a single word that changed everything. Yet, I don't know how to do this. Yet, I'm not good at this. Yet, I haven't figured this out. Yet, that word may sound small, but psychologically, it is enormous, because it moves the problem from identity to process. It tells the brain that this story is unfinished. And when the brain believes something is unfinished, it behaves differently. It becomes curious instead of defensive, persistent instead of avoidant, open instead of resigned. Notice how this changes real life. I can't stick to routines becomes, I haven't found a routine that works for me yet. I'm bad at leadership becomes, I haven't developed leadership skills yet. I can't focus becomes, I haven't built an environment that supports focus yet. Do you feel the shift? This is not positive thinking. It is psychological permission to grow. And this permission alone interrupts countless cycles of self-sabotage. But even with the right mindset, there is one experience that still terrifies most people: failure. And unless you change what failure means to you, every attempt at growth will eventually collapse. So now we need to confront the most damaging lie of all. Asterisk at some point in your life. You failed. You tried something. You committed. You hoped. And it didn't work. Maybe it was small. A habit that lasted 2 weeks. A goal you abandoned quietly. Or maybe it was bigger. A business that failed. A relationship that ended painfully. A decision that still haunts you. The event itself may be over, but its meaning often isn't. Most people don't just remember failure. They become it. They turn a moment into a label. I'm the kind of person who never finishes. I always mess things up. I'm not built for success. This is one of the cruelest tricks of a fixed mindset. It transforms isolated events into permanent identities. But this interpretation is deeply flawed. Failure is not a sentence. It is a signal. Carol Dweck showed that. Failure does not reveal who you are, it reveals what is not working. It is information, feedback. A map pointing toward adjustment. People with a growth mindset still feel disappointment. They still feel frustration. They still feel pain. The difference is what they ask next. Not, what's wrong with me? But what did this teach me? This single question changes everything. Imagine you try to wake up early for a week and fail. The fixed mindset says, see, you're not disciplined. The growth mindset says, something in my system is broken. And that leads to better questions. Am I going to bed too late? Is my phone keeping me awake? Is my evening routine chaotic? Now failure becomes a tool. And with every adjustment, you move forward. So here are 3 questions that can redefine 2026 for you. What did this experience teach me? Specifically, what is one thing I can do differently next time? Did this bring me closer to or further from who I want to become? These questions do not eliminate failure. They extract value from it. And once failure loses its power to define you, another fear rises to the surface, discomfort, because learning from failure requires courage, the courage to step back into what didn't work, and that is where most people retreat. So now we need to talk about the one thing growth demands above all else. Asterisk, most people believe something quietly, without ever saying it out loud. They believe that if something is meant for them, it should feel natural, effortless, comfortable, aligned from the beginning. And when it doesn't, when learning feels awkward, when progress feels slow, when confidence collapses, they assume they are on the wrong path. But this belief is one of the greatest illusions of modern life. Discomfort is not a sign of failure. It is the entrance fee. Every new skill begins with incompetence. Every meaningful change begins with friction. Every transformation begins with feeling unprepared. The growth mindset understands something the fixed mindset resists. Discomfort is data. It tells you that your nervous system is encountering something new, that your brain is building pathways it has never used before, that learning is actually happening. But the fixed mindset interprets discomfort as danger. It whispers, this isn't you. You're embarrassing yourself. You should stop. So most people retreat, not because they can't grow, but because they misread the signal. Think about anything you respect. Musicians, athletes, writers, leaders, none of them felt competent in the beginning. They felt exposed, clumsy, slow. The difference is that they stayed. They didn't wait for confidence. They allowed confidence to be built after effort. And this leads to a crucial shift. The fixed mindset asks, can I do this? The growth mindset asks, can I stay with this long enough to learn? That question alone determines outcomes. That if you avoid discomfort, you protect your ego, but you sacrifice your potential. If you tolerate discomfort, you feel small for a while, but you grow, and growth is never comfortable. Which brings us to the next problem. Even when people understand this intellectually, they still quit, not because discomfort is too intense, but because they don't know how to stay inside it. There is a moment in every growth process where motivation disappears, the excitement fades, the novelty dies, the rewards feel distant. This is where most people stop, not because they failed, but because the emotional cost feels unbearable. They feel slow, behind, exposed, and the mind offers an escape. Maybe this isn't for you. Maybe you should. Wait until you feel ready. Maybe now isn't the right time. These thoughts sound reasonable. They are not. They are avoidance dressed as wisdom. People with a growth mindset experience the same discomfort. The difference is what they do next. They stop evaluating themselves. They stop asking whether they are talented, capable, or gifted, and they start focusing on process. What is today's smallest action? What is the next repetition? What can I practice for just 10 minutes? This shift is critical because growth is not built by intensity. It is built by exposure, short, consistent, unremarkable. Exposure, staying in discomfort, does not mean suffering endlessly. It means refusing to quit just because you feel awkward. It means allowing yourself to be bad without making that mean anything about who you are. This is where most people misjudge themselves. They assume that feeling incompetent means they are incompetent, but incompetence is simply the first stage of competence, and the only way out is through. If you want 2026 to be different, you must learn to sit inside effort without demanding immediate proof that it's working. Because the moment you stop quitting on yourself, something remarkable happens. You become resilient, and resilience changes how you handle the outside world, including criticism. Asterisk. Few things trigger the human nervous system faster than criticism. A comment, a suggestion, a raised eyebrow. Even when it's constructive, it often feels personal, like an exposure, like proof that we are not enough. This reaction is not weakness. It is instinct. The brain is wired to protect identity, and criticism threatens identity. The fixed mindset reacts automatically. It defends. It justifies. It shuts down, or it walks away entirely. But people who grow consistently learn to do something rare. They pause. They do not absorb every word. They do not reject every word. They listen for signal. They understand. That feedback is not a verdict on their worth. It is information about their execution, and information is useful. Here is a simple framework that changes everything. When criticism appears, first, pause. Create space between the comment and your reaction. Second, search for the 10%. Even poorly delivered criticism often contains a small truth. Third, thank without submission. Gratitude disarms defensiveness, yours and theirs. Fourth, convert feedback into a concrete action. One adjustment, one experiment. This approach does not make criticism painless, but it makes it productive, and over time, something unexpected happens. You stop fearing feedback because it no longer defines you. It refines you. But there is still one enemy that quietly destroys growth more than any critic ever could. Perfectionism. Perfectionism rarely announces itself honestly. It pretends to be standards. It disguises itself as ambition. It claims to be excellence. But psychologically, perfectionism is fear. Fear of being judged. Fear of being exposed. Fear of being seen before you are ready. So perfectionism creates rules. If I can't do it perfectly, I won't start. If I can't sustain it forever, it doesn't count. If today isn't ideal, I'll begin tomorrow. And slowly, silently, progress dies. The growth mindset does not chase perfection. It chases consistency. It values effort, not just outcome. Process, not just results. One of the most effective ways to break perfectionism is to change what you reward. Instead of asking, did I succeed? Ask, did I show up? Each week, record 3 wins. At least one must be effort-based, not success-based. I practiced even when I didn't feel like it. I stayed with discomfort longer than usual. I tried again. This retrains the brain. It associates growth with progress, not flawlessness, and Once progress becomes rewarding, momentum follows. Now, we arrive at the most important truth of all: what actually makes a year extraordinary. Asterisk, most people evaluate a year by its outcomes: money earned, goals achieved, status gained. But the most meaningful years are not defined by what you acquire. They are defined by who you become. The year you learn to persist. The year you stopped quitting on yourself. The year you faced discomfort instead of avoiding it. Those years change the trajectory of your life. Because once identity shifts, results follow naturally. A growth mindset does not promise comfort. It promises movement. And movement is what builds confidence, clarity, and direction. So if 2026 becomes your best year, it won't be because everything goes smoothly. It will be because you respond differently when it doesn't. And that brings us to the final moment, the choice that decides whether this video changes anything at all. Asterisk, 2026 will not arrive with permission. It will not wait until you feel ready. It will not remove fear or doubt for you. The only thing that can change is how you meet it. So choose one belief today. Point one sentence you've been repeating that keeps you small. Add one word to it. Yet, then, take one small action that aligns with the person you are becoming. Not tomorrow, not next week, now. Because the truth is simple: the best year of your life is not built by motivation. It is built by mindset, repetition, and courage. And that choice begins the moment this video ends.